Hey, testing, testing. Testing, testing. I'm just gonna go give a word to my fucking flatmates because they're being jarring as fuck. Yeah, so I'm living in halls right now, and sometimes the people who live with me, they just like to loiter around in the hallway and chat and stuff, and they have every right to. But the only place that leaks sound in this room of mine is the doorway, so don't want to be disturbed. But yeah, so welcome to the Decompression Chamber, Season 2, Episode 11. I'm your host, Mario, if you don't already know. Thanks for being here. And opening quote is going to be from Viktor Frankl, whom I've quoted before for this podcast, or maybe in the previous season. The quote goes, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Roll the intro.
My steamers broke, fuck the oblique turn peak of the soul. Please never know what's about to occur, my zen getting rolled at the turn of your words. Run at the meat and my steamers broke, fuck the oblique turn peak of the soul. Please never know what's about to occur, my zen getting rolled at the some little words. Or margin hot stop and duck knock and rust open for cigarettes.
Yeah, so I quite like that quote because I think I remember one time in year 7, so like right at the start of secondary school, I was in tutor and they try and do like these bonding exercises or like try and find out more about you, and one of the questions was what makes you you, what is it that makes you an individual, and to this question I guess I've spent a lot of time thinking, particularly as it pertains to myself, not just about people in general. And I recall at the time I said something akin of we are what we choose to do. My idea, my thinking at the time was that we're put in unique situations because everybody has a different circumstance, and it's not like you can control the situations, but you can control the choices you make therein. So that is what it is. It's just a thought. I mean, there's lots of answers to that question. I guess there's a lot of different ways you can respond to it, but I often feel like Jean Valjean in the fucking song where it's like, who am I? Like, I don't know, it's just, it never has a set answer. It's, we ourselves are works in progress. I myself am a work in progress. One of my daily affirmations says that, and I think as hard as it is to tackle the overall question of who am I, is you can I guess reverse engineer it from the question, who do I want to be? Because naturally we have something we want to aspire to. We have some kind of ideal in our head of what we'd like to be, or maybe how we'd like others to see us. And I guess to properly answer that question of what kind of person would I like to be, you have to be able to somewhat base in reality the kind of person that you are, if that makes sense. I don't know, I think it's difficult to just like reflect and be critical about your choices, because as much as that there is that negative critical kind of thinking pattern in my head, it's not quite the same as breaking down and analysing personal decisions and personal kind of features and things that make you, because as I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm so tied to this experience of being me that it's kind of hard to detach myself from that. It's hard to step away and be aware in that sense, I guess. And for some people it's easier than for others. Sometimes, this is in reference to somebody I know, but somebody who I have to be around, sometimes they're disagreeable, sometimes they're not okay to be around. And what I said to someone who we were dealing with it at the same time, I said, if they knew they were a cunt, they wouldn't be a cunt, And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's like that for yourself, It's not often that when you're doing the things that you regret doing in the moment that you really like question yourself, that you're not aware that what you're doing is causing harm. Or at least from my perspective, that's what I'm doing. I don't know. I've been thinking about regret, because we just watched a film called Nostalgia by Tarkovsky, Russian filmmaker, but it's in Italian, and it's like one of these long, slow kind of films, and it's not like one of these films where they just present you with characters and a story, and you go, oh, this is what this film means. It's slower, it's drawn out, and quite often in these longer shots that linger on certain characters or places or frames, it at least from my perspective, it made me question the film. It made me search for the meaning, and for me, I found a lot in the meaning in the film about regrets and past choices. If what we are today is what we choose to do, then what does that mean about what we have chosen to do? What does that tell us about who we were, and how does the idea of who we were tell us anything about who we are today? I feel like I'm saying a lot of things, and I don't know whether they fall into place, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's hard to isolate one moment and say that's you. Whether it's your best moment or your worst moment, it's like over a whole progress of time. It's like if you step on the scale like in one day, your weight is going to slightly fluctuate because our body has natural processes. You have ups and your downs, but if you measure that weight over time, or if you measure yourself over time, maybe you have a more real idea of who you actually are. And I guess to a certain extent that's the thesis of this series, because for me, day by day, I don't think it's going to be easy for me to say, oh, this is the instrumental moment, this is when I changed, this is when I took a big step towards this, when in reality I feel like I'll look back and it might mean more than I expect. It's just one of those things. I think oftentimes I'm thinking about where I am in life, and I'm thinking about how much I've taken for granted in the past, situations that I didn't learn enough from, happiness that I didn't appreciate enough, inactivity and stagnation that I didn't snap myself out of, and maybe another perspective on that question of who we are. Maybe it can only be answered looking backwards. I'm sure I've quoted it before, but there was a nice quote that I like that says, life can only be lived forward but understood backwards. And so maybe the answer of who I am now doesn't reveal itself until I'm further along the line, Yeah, it's a difficult question. It's the self has multiple aspects, has multiple dimensions, I guess, because the kind of person that you are differs between the different contexts you're in. I'm sure whoever you are watching, you're a different person meeting a friend's parents than you are around your own parents. Or maybe you have a certain part of your family that you have to be more polite around, or you can't swear around. Maybe you identify as a certain, group, or, sexuality or gender, or some sort of form of identity that you don't feel comfortable, presenting as with certain parts of your family or certain parts of people in your life, and so that makes the question even more complicated. How do you collect all of those fragments and join them to create that self, or to create an image of the self that makes you able to live life in one way or another? It's a difficult question. And I think oftentimes I find myself looking to others to answer that question for me. Not directly, but using that validation from them, or using that external source of information, when in reality the person who spends most time with you is normally yourself. And so it's kind of the same, but it's not the same. As maybe you can ask the question of what do I mean to myself? What does being me mean in the current moment? What does being me mean throughout the process of life? How does that question affect what I want to do and where I'm going? Because I guess to a certain extent, you only have goals, you only have a future plan, you only have an idea of what you want to do, because to a certain extent, where you are in this moment, or you know what you are in relation to that future self. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm just making it up. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna snap right out of this conversation, and I'm just gonna roll into what I've been up to today. We were given a task, so we're doing a music video project in this term, and as kind of a bit of an exercise, our course leader Kieran, he gave us a film called Daisies, which is an extremely interesting visual film. It's got creative art design. It's got like two main characters that just kind of go through all these different experiences, and like goes from like black and white to kind of dreamlike color to like hyper real bold colorism, and like all these different visual styles and tones and set design. It's a really amazing visual film, and he just gave us a song called Prima Donna Girl, and he basically, we're in 4 groups, so he cut the film into 4 quarters and cut the song into 4 quarters, and he just said, group 1, which I'm in, you get the first quarter of each thing, and you have to just kind of put it together, see how it goes. And because we the industry standard is Adobe Premiere, I'm not very good with the clicking and dragging. I'm not well experienced with the actual mechanics of it, but I have reasonable confidence in myself in knowing when to cut, when to decide when things should be edited. Obviously, in comparison to anyone worth their salt, I'm a little pleb, but in terms of skills that I value in myself as a filmmaker, it's something that I think I can do well when the moment suits. And obviously it's one of those things where you need other people to look at it, and sometimes you overlook things, or you get desensitized because you're seeing the same images again and again and again, and you're hearing the same thing again and again and again. But I was proud about how it turned out, and because it is as visually bold and varied as I mentioned earlier, when we put it together with the other groups, it wasn't seamless, but it kind of was seamless. I couldn't tell where the cuts were from other groups, and it was really interesting. It was a formative experience, I guess. For example, I've shot music videos with Jamal, who's featured before and who I'm doing the next music video with, but I have never cut a music video together because it's fucking long. Music videos are tiring as hell. Cutting them together, just editing in general. The way I've described it to people, where if they don't have experience doing it, it's making one decision is easy enough, but making a small decision that's mentally taxing again and again and again and again while staring at a screen all day and slowly kind of becoming desensitized to what you're looking at, it's really difficult. And because like on the screen where the cuts are, it's almost like, well, from my perspective, I'm like bracing myself for those cuts. I'm like, every single time it cuts, I'm tense, I'm kind of looking for the moment, and it becomes more jarring when in reality you show it to somebody else, and because they see it in totality rather than just the bits that you kind of focus in on and zone in on, normally it works out better than you expect. And for example, even if you take time away and come back to it and realize, oh hey, no, this is actually better than I expected, I needed some time not thinking about it to come back to it, and maybe that's true for other things in life. Maybe you become so close to it that it's like you have a blind spot or something. So I don't know, I'm trying to see if I can apply that to anything in wider life, but my mind's kind of blank. And I mean, if I'm talking about life in general at the moment, I've been trying to stay on like in better habits, exercise and eating well, and just kind of regimenting myself a bit more, trying to be a bit more disciplinary with myself, because there's another quote. I'm lit up on quotes today, but the guy who ran the first ever sub 2 hour marathon, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe his name's Emmanuel Kipchoge. He said that you can only have freedom through discipline, which is an interesting idea. Is the idea that, like, to a certain, and I kind of understand that, because to a certain extent you're kind of chained down by your desires or your immediate wants, snacking, or binging like not helpful media, or you're scrolling through your phone. That stuff isn't you're not really free to do that, because it controls you don't control it. But if you put a bit more kind of, or at least for me, when I've been putting a bit more discipline into my life, it means that I don't feel like things are controlling me. I feel like I'm in control of things for myself. but that in of itself is a constant battle. I've often described my life as a balancing act. Like I'm a waiter with a tray full of drinks, and all those drinks are full to the brim, and it feels like any moment that I stumble, it goes off balance and things start to tumble. You know, one thing falls off and then the other thing falls off, or when you keep one thing in balance, the other thing doesn't. You know, and that's just life. You can't do it all smashing it out of the park. Sometimes some things are lacking, and you just need to see what needs fixing. And for me, I guess it's trying to take care of myself. It's trying to do well for myself, trying to do well for others, and I guess live up to whatever potential I believe I have, if that's something you buy into, because I think I feel blessed to have whatever potential I've been given, and I've got a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunity and a lot of things to be grateful for. So let's just imagine that the thing I'm most grateful for right now is you, because you're watching this video. So yeah, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a pleasant whatever this is. So yeah.
The meat and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique and peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, my zen getting rolled at the turn of your words. Run at the meat and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique and peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, my zen getting rolled at the turn of your words.